Well, welcome to Mining Now, film from CIM Montreal 2023, and it's a busy convention, that's for sure. And I'm your host, Roy Slack. And for this episode, we're featuring Hecla. And joining us is Phil Baker, none other than the CEO of Hecla. And I'm going to throw something in right at the start. Hecla's been in operation over 130 years, a little bit longer than CIM.
Yeah.
And uh, I just want to say thank you to Hecla for all the support. The company supports CIM, supports SME, the industry, and also to you personally, because it isn't just the company, but your time, and you've presented at a number of these. And so I just want to plug that in at the start. Thank you very
Well,
much.
well, I know we get more out of it than we put in. It's a great organization, CIM, SME, PDAC, all of those organizations we are part of because it really is critical for us to learn and to also share
And to
what we
share.
know.
Yeah. So we're going to do some sharing today.
Okay, glad to do it.
So I want to start out with the mine where it all began. The mine I know most about of your operations, and that's Lucky Friday. And it's been around a long time, but what I find interesting is it's a hotbed of innovation.
Absolutely, and it has been for a long time. Yeah, the mine started in I think 1942, so we're in the 81st year of that mine, and there's been a series of innovations that have taken place. And we had a mining method that was developed in the 80s called the Luffel method, the Lucky Friday underhand longwall.
Yeah.
And that method has served Hecla really well for the, really, since 1987. But what we found in starting in about 2015 is, and this is sort of at the time that the shaft was being constructed, was the seismicity was increasing, and it was something we were having to deal with. And so as a result of that seismicity, we ended up having our stope shut down about 25% of the time. And so really, really hard to have an economic ore body with that sort of interruption in production.
And well, you talk about seismicity, and I'm not sure if our audience knows just how deep Lucky
Yeah,
Friday is.
yeah. Well, so for the audience, let me just say, Roy, you were part of cementation, and cementation built that shaft, and that shaft goes almost 2 miles below the surface. So not quite the deepest mine in North America, but certainly the deepest in the U.S. and among the deepest in North America. And there's not many mines that are 2 miles below the surface. And we made that investment because you have such a big ore body that sits there. It's between the reserves and resources, you've got hundreds of millions of ounces of silver plus lead and zinc, and it's on a sort of a linear sort of ore body, almost completely vertical. And so it's a really, really interesting place to operate, and it's part of the reason why it's been around for such a long time.
But as it gets deeper, you have to innovate, right?
Absolutely.
You can't leave it behind, and so you've come up with some interesting things.
We have. So what we found was that with the stopes having to be shut down, we couldn't get this level of production that we needed to have the productivity. And if we didn't shut the stopes down for periods of time when we had these indications that we were going to have a seismic event, we didn't know exactly when those events would happen, we ran a risk of injury. And so we just were not willing to take that risk. So we said, we got to figure out how to change the mine. So we started looking at mechanical mining. That was the path that we went on, was to say, okay, instead of putting this energy in the rock through blasting, what we'll do is put very little energy in by just cutting the rock. And so we built this machine with EpiRock. The machine is completely built, was ready to go. And then a couple of things happened. One was we had a strike at the Lucky Friday, and that was during the course of this thing being built. That strike slowed things down, but it gave us an opportunity to really study things. And then you had COVID. And as a result of COVID, we said, okay, we can't bring, we in fact can't even go see the machine.
Yeah.
We couldn't do the travel necessary. And so as a result of that, we started looking at preconditioning the rock
Okay. Yeah.
before we were going to cut it. And the reason for that was we wanted to make sure the slip faults that are in the ore body would not basically bury the machine. And it was the machine was going to be operated completely remotely, so that we wouldn't have the risk of a miner being in the harm's way. So in that process of preconditioning the rock, we actually developed a whole new mining method that's a drill and blast method, which has an advantage over the mechanical mining in that we don't have a single point of failure. So with the mechanical mining, if that machine breaks down or if something happens, you're dead.
Stopped. Yep.
So we started doing this preconditioning, and we concluded that we could develop this new method. And so we worked on it for about a year before we told anybody in the world that we were doing this.
Yep.
And it has been fantastic. And essentially what the method is we come in with an uppercut. So you're under paste, a cemented backfill, and we drill these vertical holes. And this is going to sound very simple, but I can tell you that technology has advanced to allow this to happen. You couldn't have done this 15 years ago.
There's enabling technology.
But mostly detonating technology.
Okay.
The ability to control the detonation and know that everything is blasted. So we drill these holes that are about 25 feet. We blast it. We have the material come into the swell.
Okay.
And so now what we're doing is mucking from the top down. So we muck out that previous opening. Then we fill it. We come in and we muck underneath that. We fill it, and then we muck again. So similar to a long hole, except you're mining from the top down. You have no undercut. So that's why we call it underhand closed bench method of mining.
So you're always under a constructed back.
And you always have an element of rubbleized material below your feet.
Yeah.
So even when you get to the very bottom cut, we've blasted enough material below that to keep it safe. So it is a remarkable method. And what I'm telling people is what we are able to do now is basically control where and when an earthquake happens.
Okay.
Effectively.
Yep.
And so when we do that blast, about a millisecond later, that rock closes about a foot.
Okay. Yep.
So the material swells up and it closes immediately. And so it is now completely de-stressed. Miners are able to go in there and, to muck it. We are patenting the method.
Okay.
Not that it's going to have a lot of applications, because you got to have.
It's specific to
Yeah, but we're patenting it, and we'll see where it takes us.
So when of course, when you blast it and it swells, it also fills the opening below. Like there's no open.
Yeah, no, I mean, but it's rubbleized.
Yeah.
So that's the interesting thing is when you come in, there's very little additional blasting that you need to do, because the material is actually
when
quite.
You say rubble, yeah, okay, I get it. Your fragmentation is
adequate to be able to muck it and haul it and send it up. So it is.
So you're using the stress to your advantage instead of fighting it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So we're looking at this. It is clearly a much better method of mining for us. It's safer, more productive.
Yeah.
So we're going from, we were at 800 tons a day is what this mine operated at.
Yeah.
And this past year, we were right at 1,000 tons. This year, we should be around 1,100 tons. Next year, we should be probably at 1,200. And we're on the silver shaft, which you might, recall, which is our shaft from surface that goes down a mile. We're finally putting in the service hoist.
Okay.
It's something I've wanted to do for a decade, and it's finally happening.
I've got to tell you a story because the first shaft, when we were up sinking Lac, which became Williams, the silver shaft was done just before that, and we had a whole crew Jay and his crew came up from the Silver Shaft, and Jim Tucker and a few other, Paul Pendleton, came up from that project. And so that crew we called Jay and the Americans. Anyway, I digress, but you might remember the old group, Jay and the American Music Group.
Yeah, that's right. So what we're doing is we're putting in that service hoist in order to increase the throughput of the mine. So theoretically,
Yeah.
you could maybe conceivably go to 1,600 tons a day. Don't think we'll ever get
Yeah.
there, but that is the theoretical limit. We we are now disconnecting the mine and the mill. You might recall that the way because the mill had so much more capacity
Yeah.
than the mine,
Yeah.
we didn't have any place where we were stockpiling. We were building a bunker as well. So we now have just fundamentally changed the Lucky Friday, and so for the next 20 or 30 years, we've got a great one way. We got other new issues that we'll have as we go deeper, dealing with heat and the ventilation requirements. But as far as the seismicity, we really think we have this settled for at least some period of time.
And I mentioned to you before the show started about my visits up there, and it's such a beautiful part of the world. And I think I shouldn't say a well-kept secret, because there's some beautiful resorts and there's a tourist industry there. But for anyone that hasn't been up there before, you go up and it's we talked about that, the center of the universe.
That's exactly right. Yeah, Wallace, Idaho. They have right in the middle of downtown. They say this is the center of the universe. Yeah. Nobody else has claimed it, so they claimed it a long time ago.
And it's historic. There's so much interesting there.
Well, and that's where Hecla, of course, started. Yeah. Was right there in Wallace, Idaho, 132 years, and we're still there.
Yeah. So we'll move on, because there's lots of things you guys are into, and I want to touch on the operations first before, because there was a list of exploration there. We don't have time to go through all that, but and we talked about the Yukon, and you're up there now at Keno Hill.
Yeah, that's right. The Keno Hill Mining District, it's probably the second largest silver mining district after the Cobalt District in Canada. It's something we've been interested in for a long time. In 2007, we approached the company Alexco to try to, enter into some arrangement with them. They went a different direction, and they did a streaming transaction in order to move the mine forward. And we just found that streaming transaction was problematic to operate the mine. And ultimately, so did Alexco as well as Wheaton. And so when the opportunity came to acquire Alexco, we at the same time took the stream out. We purchased the stream, and so there's now no longer any stream at all on this land package. It's 88 square miles. It's a 200 million ounce district. The largest ore body produced right at 100 million ounces, and we're having extraordinary. Well, our predecessor, Alexco, had extraordinary success exploration-wise. They really cracked the code, and we're now following up on that. And we've had just great exploration results, and operationally, things are advancing. We've been working at it between us and Alexco for a year of just development, just setting the mine up, and we'll start production in the second half of the year. And we would expect in the first year for it to produce 2.5 million ounces. Wow. And probably moving to sort of 4 or 5 million the following year. And it will make Hecla the largest silver producer in Canada. And we'll end up producing maybe 40% of all the silver mined in Canada. And that's on top of the 45% that we do in the U.S. So
yeah, grade is a lovely thing, eh?
Yeah, it is. It is. I'm not sure if it's the highest grade silver deposit in the world, but if it's not, it's close to it.
Because when I heard that you guys are up in Keno, I thought that was a great combination, because it's high grade, but it's challenging, but you guys are innovative, and you have the resources and the people, and so I think it's
No,
it's another beautiful area.
It is. It is a beautiful, beautiful place in the Yukon, and it just has such a rich history, and there's a lot of local support for the mine, and support in Whitehorse.
So we're going through. I've been to Keno Hill. I've been to Lucky Friday. I've been to Alaska, but I haven't been to Greens Creek.
Oh, you missed out, man. You missed out. You're gonna have to fix that. So Greens Creek is a mine that we have owned a portion of since 1987. And in 2008, we acquired the portion that Rio Tinto owned and became the
The
operator
sole
of the mine.
owner and operator.
Yeah, yeah, and it has been a fantastic mine for the past, certainly since 1997. It has been a free cash flow generating mine every year since that time, and has generated about little over 2 billion of free cash flow.
Yeah.
So it has been the bedrock of Hecla since 2008. And the guys there have done a tremendous job. When we started operating, it was a little under 1,900 tons a day. This year, we should get by the end of the year to 2,600 tons a day.
Really?
Yeah. So again, it's this sort of innovation.
Yeah.
It's innovation in the mill where it can take that material, and it's innovation in the mine. And it's at this point, it's almost all cut and fill. So it's a lot of hard work,
Yeah.
and a lot of coordination in order to get the ore. But again, very high grade. It is the United States' largest silver mine. 10 million ounces of silver, roughly 8 to 10 would be sort of the range that it would produce. And we just had a Geo Summit the other day, and I cannot be more excited about the exploration potential at Greens Creek. So my expectation is that we've got another 10, 15 years of mine life in reserves. That's what we've had since it started.
Yeah.
My expectation is that
And you're still drilling and adding.
Yeah, that's my expectation there.
Yeah. Well, we're making the circuit now, and we're in Montreal.
Yep.
So we're in La Belle Province. So Casa Berardi.
Casa Berardi's been a great mine for us. We acquired it in 2013. At that point, it was simply an underground mine and relatively high grade. They had this 113 zone, and we've been exploring, trying to find another one. So far, without success, but we've got 37 kilometers of strike to explore on. It's a mine that's in transition. So we went from simply underground to where now we are both underground and surface, and soon, in the next 2 or 3 years, we'll be only surface mining. And so there's a bit of investment that we have to do to get us to where we need to in terms of the cost structure of the mine. And when we do that, it will be simply an open pit mine unless we have success underground.
Yeah.
And it generates a significant amount more cash flow than any other mine in those years.
So I look at the company, and I find this interesting because it seems like a very balanced mix of flagship operations, acquisitions, and exploration. And exploration of both your own properties, and I looked on your website, there's a whole list of exploration plays too. So keeps you busy.
It does. And I'm a big believer that you need to have a deep inventory of projects, because what I've learned in the time I've been in the industry is that you learn as you have the opportunity, as you have time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you think about our operating assets, they're all big land positions. They're all long-lived assets. They're all relatively low cost, and you have time to figure out how to make the geology. You have time to figure out how to improve the operation.
Yeah.
And so you can innovate. And if you have a future in front of you, you got a reason to go out and spend the time innovating. And the same thing applies to the exploration property. So if you look at each of them, they are very large land packages, and we'll work on them one year, and maybe the next year. We've got some projects where we worked on, and what we thought wasn't what we found. And rather than just continuing to spend or to sell the asset, we're going to take a step back. We're going to rethink what it is we have there and give it another go in a future date.
I was about to say triage, but that's not a good
No.
prioritization is probably the better word.
Yeah.
But
And it's learning, right? It's it's all about learning and innovation and being thoughtful about what you're doing, and realize that it's not what you assume is there is not necessarily what's there, right? The mining industry, you have very little knowledge, and you got to make some big assumptions, and oftentimes there's wrong, and you need time to try to recorrect, or try to correct, and try to find where what's really happening.
So I've got I've got a leader here. I've got a leadership question for you about innovation, and I picture you handing a license to innovate to your people, like a physical, like a driver's license or something. But there's a leadership part in this because uh, Hecla could very easily coast on its properties and on its operations, but it continues to innovate, and that's got to be fostered from the top. And
Well, look, I'll start. I'll say I've been very fortunate with our board. So I, in the 20 plus years I've been at Hecla, we've had in excess of 20 different directors. And the consistent thing with these directors in general has been you need to innovate, you need to take risk, you need to allow yourself to fail. You might look at our continuous miner as, oh, that's a failure. Man, I look at it as huge success.
yeah, it was a stepping stone too.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, the board has that view. A lot of the innovation, the things that we attempt, I say this is like exploration. We go and we spend a lot of money exploring, and most of it is unsuccessful.
Yeah.
But in all of it, you learn, and you're now at a different place to be able to do something more. So,
Yeah. So on a totally different track now, because you brought up the board. So
sure.
I'm because I'm on a couple boards, and we see more pressure from shareholder groups with regard to ESG. And, it's top of mind for all of us these days. And of course, Hecla is a very well established company, but you've got a number of exploration plays in interesting areas. So that's got to be another area that you're working hard at.
Yeah, we are, and we always have, right? I mean, the thing that's interesting about mining operations, and certainly Hecla's, is they go into a community, and what ends up happening is the community adopts the project, adopts the mine. They view it as much theirs as it is ours, right? And so, in my experience, we've not ever had any conflict with the local people. Now, what I will tell you is that there's conflicts that happen from people that are way far away that decide
they want to protect the local people who are
right.
Yeah, who are a family.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So, in all of our places, we're the largest private employer. We certainly have the best paying jobs in all of these places. Our guys and gals, they have a great wage and great health care benefits, and they have, in the case of the U.S. employees, they have a traditional pension plan.
Yeah.
So they've got lots of things that most people don't have, and they really appreciate that. And then there are the people that work at these mines. They are leaders in the community.
And they're I know from visiting, and a lot of places are like this, but they're very proud to be in the industry. And sometimes people outside the industry don't understand that. But I remember going up there, and there's a lot of pride that we work for Hecla, and we're Lucky Friday, and look at how deep it is, and how safe our operation is. So so you guys are obviously doing something right. Eh?
Well, I think we are, and you look at our different projects. We have the one that I guess I would mention that sort of falls into the exploration development is our projects that are in Montana, and these projects are about 50 miles as the crow flies from the Lucky Friday.
Oh, that close?
They're that close. Yeah, it's a little hard to get there from there, but
yeah, because I don't know the area that well to visualize it.
Yeah, but these are. This project makes it the third largest undeveloped copper asset in the United States, as well as silver. So it's about 3 billion pounds of copper and about 360 million ounces of silver.
So what is it, a copper mine or is it a silver mine?
Well, it's both.
Yeah.
It's both. It's from our perspective, it's a silver mine, but it's both. We like to have multi-metals.
Yeah.
We think that makes a much more economic ore body. But in any case, we are working towards that. We would anticipate that we could get permits in the next couple of years just to explore. We've sort of
Okay.
taken a step back and said, okay, all we want to do is go in and do the development so that we can explore. We're not asking for permission to mine, so we're
Yeah.
going to do it in a two-step process. But I guess the interesting thing I want to mention, Roy, is that my perception of the U.S. politics is unlike any place we've been in the last 30 years. I was chairman of the National Mining Association for 3 years. My term ended about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I can just tell you that the world has changed. There's a recognition in the United States for that mining the minerals is important for national security.
Yeah.
It's important for economic security. It's important for just shortening the supply chain. And then finally, there's a recognition of this energy transition and
Yeah.
the need for the metals. So the very first bill out of the House was HR1, which is a permitting reform bill.
Okay.
So it is a whole different world, and you do have Democrats in the Senate that are supportive of permitting reform. So what I'm anticipating is the course of the next 2, 4, 6 years that you will see significant permitting reform. Could be this year, but certainly over that period of time.
Yeah.
And that gives me more confidence with respect to these projects
Looking at the future, sure.
that we have in the United States. And I think the same thing's happening in Canada.
So I want to go back to Montana
Sure.
because you had a qualifier in there as the crow flies. So you said it was 50 miles,
Yeah, so
but
due north. Yeah.
but how far to actually get there if you're not a crow?
Well, I mean, if you're coming from Coeur d'Alene, it's about a 2-hour drive.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not very far, and you're close to, some city. You're close to Troy, Montana.
So would that be feet for Lucky Friday eventually, or is
No,
it too
no,
far?
no. It's a whole different process. And,
Okay. Okay.
you're gonna float a copper con there.
Yeah. I just want to ask you if there anything else you want to add to our discussion.
I guess the last thing I would add is that despite Hecla being 132 years old, we are actually the fastest growing silver miner, of established mines in the world. And it's just really remarkable. And I think it's a testament to this culture we have of innovation, because it really comes down to that, right? It comes down to the Lucky Friday having the new method. Comes down to CASA being successful at automation that we have done there. Comes down to all the other things that we've talked about, and then we're very focused. We recognize the importance of silver in the energy transition, so we're very focused on how do we continue to grow our silver production and provide the silver that the world needs. That energy transition is going to be very much focused on solar energy.
Yeah.
And for every gigawatt of solar energy you install, you need 500,000 ounces of silver. And so you think about the aspirations that we have, call it 25% of all the power coming from solar. That's a lot of silver that you got to have. The silver market's about a 1.2 billion ounce market. We had a growth over the prior year of 28% more silver used for solar, and I'm not going to suggest it'll continue to grow at that rate, but it's going to be double-digit sort of rate of growth. So we think this focus that we have on silver. We've been doing it for 132 years. We think this is the time for silver, unlike any other time.
Wow. And you know what? I didn't realize that. You hear so much about critical minerals and
Right.
other minerals, and I didn't realize
Silver should be
the demand
mentioned
for
with
silver.
it. Yeah.
Should be. I say all minerals are critical.
I agree with you.
I try to tell people that. Well, thank you and personally, I'm going to take from this. Doesn't matter how old you are, you can still innovate. So I'm inspired. But Phil, thanks for joining us,
Glad to do it.
and once again, thanks for all that you and Hecla do to support CIM, and thank you to our audience for joining us for another great installment of Mining Now.
Appreciate it, Roy.